Pythagoras was a philosopher and mathematician who lived from about 570 to 495 BCE. He was born on the Greek island of Samos in the eastern Aegean Sea. In his youth he traveled widely, and later he moved to southern Italy, which at that time had many Greek colonies in the region known as Magna Graecia. Around 530 BCE he founded a community in the city of Croton, one of the important Greek settlements there. This community was more than just a school for teaching mathematics. It was something between a religious order, a philosophical brotherhood, and a political group. His followers were called Pythagoreans, and they lived under very strict rules of conduct. The main reason behind their strict way of life was their religious and philosophical beliefs. Pythagoreans believed that the human soul was immortal. They also believed in reincarnation, meaning that after the body dies, the soul does not die but instead enters into another body. This could be the body of another human, or it could even be the body of an animal. This process of repeated rebirths is often called the transmigration of the soul. Because of this belief, the Pythagoreans tried to live a life of purification, so the soul could eventually be freed from the cycle of rebirth. Their rules about food, clothing, and behavior were designed to keep the soul pure and prepared for release. Inside the community at Croton, members lived together in a shared way of life. They practiced communal ownership, which means they did not keep private property but shared everything in common. They avoided luxury and tried to live in a simple and disciplined manner. They were not just interested in studying numbers and geometry, but also in practicing a way of life that combined philosophy, religion, and daily discipline. One of the strictest and most curious rules was the ban on eating beans. This has become one of the most famous Pythagorean rules, and it was explained in different ways by different ancient authors. The early 4th century CE philosopher Iamblichus wrote a book called On the Pythagorean Life that gives detailed accounts of Pythagoras and his followers. In this book, Iamblichus said the ban on beans had deep symbolic and religious meaning. He explained that some Pythagoreans believed beans contained the souls of the dead. Others thought beans had a direct connection to the underworld, which was the place where souls went after death. Iamblichus also recorded other explanations. Some believed beans should be avoided because their shape resembled human genitalia, which tied them to sexuality and impurity. Others thought beans caused flatulence, which disturbed the purity and calm of the body, and since the body was the home of the soul, it needed to be kept as clean and orderly as possible. These explanations may sound unusual today, but for the Pythagoreans they were consistent with their belief that everything in life, even food, had to be kept in line with the goal of keeping the soul pure. Other ancient writers also mentioned this being taboo. Aristotle, who lived from 384 to 322 BCE, wrote a work called On the Pythagoreans, which survives only in fragments. In these fragments, Aristotle said the reason for avoiding beans was because beans symbolized the gates of Hades, the realm of the dead. To eat beans was symbolically like opening the gates to the world of the dead. Another source is Diogenes Laertius, who wrote Lives of Eminent Philosophers in the early 3rd century CE. He collected many reports about philosophers and their lives. In his account of Pythagoras, he repeated several different possible reasons for the bean ban without choosing one as correct. What is consistent across all these sources is that beans were linked in some way to death, impurity, or the soul. For the Pythagoreans, avoiding beans was part of a larger discipline of life. They believed that purity of body and soul was necessary for reaching a higher spiritual state and eventually escaping the endless cycle of reincarnation. The bean rule was only one example of their rules. The Pythagoreans had many others. They sometimes practiced periods of silence to discipline the mind and to learn self-control. They believed numbers had sacred meaning and that mathematics revealed the underlying harmony of the universe. They studied music because they thought musical harmony was a reflection of cosmic harmony. For them, living according to number, order, and harmony was not just an intellectual exercise but a religious duty. Iamblichus explained that the entire Pythagorean way of life was a kind of spiritual training program. The strict rules about diet, silence, clothing, and shared living were all tools to help the soul prepare for its release from the cycle of rebirth. Everything in their community was tied to this belief, from the simplest rule about what food to eat, to the most abstract ideas about mathematics and music.